Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're sharing a really incredible story of love, of war, and ultimately of survival. It's told by the two people who lived through it all, Mariana Chechelyuk and Vladislav Andrianov. This is what happens when a normal life gets completely shattered by the Russo-Ukrainian war. I started talking to the wall so I wouldn't go crazy. Just let that sink in for a second. That one quote from Mariana really gives you a glimpse of the sheer desperation she faced. We're going to follow their journey, right? From a pretty hopeful beginning through the absolute unimaginable darkness of captivity, and then onto the really difficult path back to a normal life.
But before all the horror, before the captivity, their story started out like so many others do. It was a simple, hopeful meeting in a city, Mariupol, that was still at peace.
So Vladislav, he's a soldier, and he first spotted Mariana, who was training to be a police investigator, online. He was pretty determined to meet her, so he actually tracked her down at her gym, and, after being pretty persistent, he finally got her attention. And it was these little human moments, that really built their connection. On one of their early dates, Vladislav brought her a Kinder Surprise egg. It was this sweet, kind of funny gesture, especially since she was trying to stay really fit for her demanding new job. It was a simple thing, but it just showed he was thoughtful.
For Mariana, the real turning point, though, came when Vladislav started to open up about his life as a soldier. As she listened to him, she said she saw this maturity that just captivated her. He wasn't just some guy trying to flirt anymore. He was a man she genuinely wanted to get to know.
And then, just like that, their entire world was shattered. February 24th, 2022, the full-scale invasion began, and their love story was just violently, brutally interrupted by war.
Vladislav, he knew how bad it was going to be. He actually packed an emergency bag for Mariana and just begged her to evacuate with their families. But she couldn't bring herself to go. She kept finding reasons to delay, checking on her grandmas, the dogs, until it was just too late. Mariupol was surrounded, and there was no way out.
They ended up taking shelter together in the besieged Azov-style steel plants. And Vladislav admits the anguish of not knowing if his family was even alive was just crippling. How do you stay focused on the fight? He and Mariana started passing secret notes to each other, this tiny, fragile lifeline. And then that was severed too. Mariana was captured during what everyone thought was a civilian evacuation. Her capture, well, that was the start of a whole new nightmare. For the next 2 years, they would both have to endure the absolute horrors of Russian captivity, a world filled with torture, starvation, and psychological torment that was designed specifically to break them. For 25 months, think about that. For 25 months, Mariana was basically a ghost in the system. She was put in solitary confinement, faced mock executions, just this relentless psychological abuse day in and day out. And for Vladislav, it was even longer, 29 months. And his time in prison included surviving one of the war's most notorious atrocities, an event that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He was there. He was inside the prison barracks at Olenivka when it was deliberately blown up from the inside, killing over 50 of his fellow Ukrainian POWs. He calls it the most horrible night of his life, hearing the screams of his dying friends and being completely powerless to do anything. And as if all the physical suffering wasn't enough, their captors found out they were a couple. And they used that love as a weapon. They told Vladislav that Mariana was this secret agent who tortured prisoners. And they told Mariana that Vladislav, her Bili, was dead. They fed them these vicious lies over and over, just to torture them mentally. But somehow, even in all of that darkness, there were these little flickers of hope, moments that sound almost impossible, things that gave them just enough strength to keep going.
Okay, get this. In this incredible twist of fate, Mariana gets put to work sorting the paperwork of other prisoners. And while guards are watching her, she's secretly sifting through thousands of files. And then she finds it. Vladislav's passport. In that one split second, despite what she'd been told, she knew he was alive.
To hold on to that knowledge, to keep their bond alive in her mind, Mariana did this tiny act of defiance. She pulled a single elastic thread from her sock, and she fashioned it into a ring. It was a secret symbol of their commitment that she had to hide from her captors for months. Then, after the chaos of that explosion at Olenivka, she was told to list the survivors. And for just a split second, she saw him, Vladislav. Gaunt, covered in soot, she said she wouldn't have even recognized him if it weren't for a tattoo. And with an inspector watching her every move, she had to show absolutely no emotion. After more than 2 years, what must have felt like a lifetime, they were finally released in separate prisoner exchanges. But their reunion, that moment they had both dreamed about for so long, it wasn't the end of their story. It was really the beginning of a whole new and very difficult chapter. It really forces you to ask the question, right? What actually happens after the fairy tale reunion? After the cameras turn off? For them, the freedom they had fought so hard to survive for, it brought its own deep and painful challenges. See, they came home, but they weren't the same people who were torn apart 2 years earlier. The battle on the front lines was over, but a new one was just beginning. They were dealing with severe PTSD and depression. They had to go to therapy just to learn how to be together again. And they had to do all this while adjusting to a world that had just moved on, sometimes even facing awful judgment online from people who had no idea what they'd actually been through. Vladislav described coming back to freedom as feeling like a blind kitten. Think about it. In prison, every single second of your day is controlled. Suddenly, you're free. And the endless choices, the lack of any structure, it was just completely overwhelming. But through all that pain, their ordeal taught them a really profound lesson. It's something Vladislav said that really sticks with you. A person doesn't value anything as much as what was taken away from them. Freedom, time, love. You don't know what it's worth until it's gone. Their story is an incredible testament to the human spirit, for sure. But it's also a pretty stark reminder that for survivors of this kind of trauma, coming home isn't the end of the war. It's often just the beginning of a quieter, more personal one, the fight to find peace and somehow reclaim your life. And it leaves us with this final question.